zillion pieces. Interestingly enough, if you go to the Pentagon report, which looked at the aeroplane that hit that, it has managed to fly intact through a large solid masonry wall and then extrude itself past the internal columns. If ever you want to see something that's so ridiculous, go there. But your question is that the plane would have disintegrated a million bits. There was a big fireball when the fuel was ignited. The engines and other parts of the plane did actually go right out the back of some of the buildings and was found some way away from other streets. I don't know about World Trade Center 2, I can't recall. Oh, yeah, it was the engine and the front wheel on that coach went straight through Tower 2.
So are you suggesting then that the planes did actually hit the buildings, but they were a diversion?
I think the planes were very real. They definitely hit the buildings.
Yeah.
I've got no doubt about that. Like I say, I don't quite understand what you're trying to say. Oh, yes, that they were in fact. Someone had set this up to look like the planes had brought the towers down. The planes themselves did not bring the buildings down. Something else, and I've said before, if you do the equations and use the laws of gravity and the laws of thermodynamics and calculate how quickly 110 concrete slabs could fall from 470 metres to the ground, the quickest it could do it is something like 11.5 seconds in the case of World Trade Center 2. But it came down in 10. The only way you can make, as indeed we've been told, the only way you can make something come down faster than gravity is to push it down. And to do that, you have to add energy. You have to add energy to accelerate these floors quicker, and then to turn it into dust requires a heap more energy. And by definition, adding that much energy in a confined space in that short a period of time is an explosion by definition. The planes came down, the towers came down because of explosions, period.
Yes, please.
Niels, I'm just wondering, the dust that that you investigated and analysed and so on, was it taken from just that one particular individual in that one particular location, or were there several samples that you were able to get from around the district?
Yes. The scientific paper is based on samples from four different individuals. There were more samples, but we confined the paper only to individuals who were ready to testify how they got the sample, how they stored it, and eventually put down what you call the chain of custody. So it's very firmly documented. Other samples where the individuals denied to stay in public, these samples were taken out of the investigation. The paper is based on 4 different samples. But then we have several sources. It turned out later on to be slightly different, but this is another story. The scientific paper is based on 4 different samples, and the chain of custody is very firmly established. Please.
I'm sorry, one quick question. Whenever I talk to people about the thermite in the buildings, they always say it came from other sources, or could have come from other sources. I was wondering if you could just cover that point. For example, the building that they used in constructing the buildings.
I'm not sure I understood the question.
What they're saying is the thermite was already in the building for other reasons, for example, construction or some other source.
Thermite being in the building for other reasons, no.
Yeah. I'm actually a farmer. I spent many years of my life welding. And I know that aluminium is not part of the slag you get when you're welding. And aluminium is in all its particles, and aluminium is in the red chips. So no, it's not coming from building.
Any other explanation other than someone...
Well, if you have a suggestion why nano-thermite should be in the building for other reasons, you're welcome to present it to the...
That's the argument they put up.
Yeah, very good one. Okay.
The fact that the material is nano is also a complete refutation of anything to do with welding.
If the thermite supplies the heat for a fire, you don't need to have thermite all the way, because if you're conversant with welding, you can turn an oxy torch onto a sheet of steel and get it molten, then turn the flame off, and the oxygen will burn the sheet through on its own. So that accounts for the different trajectory, the lateral trajectory of the steel, and the speed of the steel to fall could have been by oxygen application.
No. If you want to burn steel, you have to have pure oxygen, or very high pressure oxygen. You can't do it in air.
That's an oxy torch with the pressure.
Yes, but when you press the button on the oxygen torch, you're going to generate pure oxygen, which burns the steel.
Yeah,
First of all, you heat it to red heat,
that you
and
get
then
the
you
heat.
give the oxygen, and then it burns. But until if you cannot use that without the pure oxygen that comes out of the centre of your jet.
High pressure, and it directs the heat through.
But where's the oxygen in a 100-story building?
It showed a projectile or whatever directing the thermite laterally.
Yeah, well, air won't do it.
We have a question down here.
This is not really a question, this is the fellow who introduced this session. But I did with the anti-war movement. I went to a planning session for a protest, and I said, I think 9/11 was a false flag operation, and I was, from that moment on, I was frozen out by that particular group, so that's why this kind of thing is death to the political parties, and they were the radical left wings. Okay, so I'm just pointing out. So ever since then I've been cut out of them, so that's why it makes anyone from the political arena here. That's not sort of question, but it's just a statement, okay? So
I suggest that anyone having the microphone pass it on to the next, so that the microphone walk around and fight.
It's really important that we confine ourselves to facts and science and irrefutable things, but there's also circumstantial evidence. There's a lot of coyness about who's behind this. I mean, the facts remain that George Bush's cousin did a refit of the elevators in the World Trade Center, as I understand. It's published material, it's not secret, the month before, and that provides a likely way that the huge quantities of explosives were actually moved into the buildings. George Bush's, another one of his cousins, controls security at United Airlines, which explains why none of the alleged hijackers were ever seen on a photograph on the boarding impress. The program for a New American Century advertised a catalysing event similar to a new Pearl Harbor 10 years before this happened. I mean, there's a crime scene, and the movement really has to become a little less timid than what it is. I mean, we're looking at the jaws of death as far as I'm concerned. The Reichstag fire in 1933 was a tiny little thing compared to this, but the consequences are going to be the same, only on a bigger scale. So thanks for your talk. I mean, it's a lot of facts, but the circumstances damn the perpetuators.